Hey David, how's it going?
Good, Felicia. How are you?
I'm pretty good, pretty good. So I'm here with David Heath, co-founder and CEO of BOMBAS. Welcome to the stage officially, man. How are you doing?
Thank you. You as well. I am great. Sun is shining here in New York, so it's a good day.
Uh, All right, so I won't brag about the Miami weather at all because I
Ah,
know it might be a little chilly, and I don't want you to hate me. We just met, and I want to have a good conversation over the time that we have together. And so, I want to jump right into being able to share with the audience that's joining us today a little bit more about you, right? Like your story. And I know you do interviews, and you're always asked, like, tell us the origin story. But maybe start a part of the story that you don't get to share really often that you would like people to know a little bit more about the journey. Can we start there?
yeah. I think that's a great place to start. It's interesting. I grew up in a household where my dad was an entrepreneur. I watched him start a business with $5,000 in the basement of our house, and so from really early on, either through genetics or just osmosis, I knew that I wanted to be an entrepreneur one day. So I went to school for entrepreneurship at Babson College, and when I graduated, I spent basically my entire career with the intention of always wanting to start and run my own business. Um, Fast forward to when I came across the idea for Bombas, which is I was scrolling on Facebook one day, and I came across this post that said socks were the number one most requested clothing item at homeless shelters. And I sat there and I was like, oh, that's interesting. Here's an item of clothing that I've never spent more than a few seconds a day thinking about. And yet it's perceived as a luxury item for over 600,000 people living here in the US. Um, and I didn't immediately go, aha, here is, the next, billion-dollar global apparel brand. I thought, wow, this is pretty sad. And, maybe there's a way, that we can help solve this problem in our community. And I took a lot of inspiration from a business that was growing at the time and getting a lot of attention, which was Tom's and their buy one, give one model. And
Mhm.
I thought, oh, maybe we can create a sock brand that buys, that donates a pair for every pair that we sell. And I think the thing that is really fascinating about the founding story is I thought that this was going to be like what I called like a hobby business, right? Something I'd work on, until like the real idea came along, right? And so, I started working on it without really the intention of ever imagining that it would be, to the size and scale of where we are at today.
Mhm. So we have that in common, right? And so my dad, entrepreneur most of my life, but it didn't make me immediately go into entrepreneurship, right? I just knew my dad worked really hard and came home dirty and tired every day. Construction, right? Construction and development. And so was there anything else along the journey that you kind of tinkered with, tried before launching Bombas?
Yeah, I'd started I think like three other businesses. One was a social networking platform for apartment buildings. Shortly after, I mean, this was 2006, so Facebook hadn't had like world domination yet, and all these like boutique start social media sites were sort of Dogster and Friendster and all these other things. And I thought, oh, maybe there's one for apartment buildings in New York. Needless to say, it didn't work out. And then right before Bombas, me, my brother, my dad, and another business partner, we started a fine foods business here in New York, selling truffles, caviar, mushrooms, and other wild edibles to the top 300 restaurants here in New York, which was fun. It was this small little 4-person business that wasn't really ever going to scale to be something big. But again, I think my journey with entrepreneurship was, dive into or find interest in the thing that was like intriguing me at the moment and use it as a stepping stone to learn and figure out what it was like to be an entrepreneur and progressively wait or find the next big idea.
So you started in 2013, right? The world has literally changed a lot. I feel like it changes by the minute at this point.
Crazy.
Tell us a little bit more about like you, right? Like how has David evolved as a founder, as a leader, from 2013 to now, especially with the world changing as much as it has?
Well, I think I think I've evolved in a couple ways. I think one of the most profound was, when I started this business, this was really like, the first real business that I had started where I was going to hire employees and potentially scale. And I said, once we get 25 employees, I think I'll probably step down and somebody else can run this because, what do I know about running a company with 25 people? And I said the same thing. I have 50 people, and then we were 100 people, and I've kept. I now feel a lot more confident today. We're over 200 people, but I had never realized that I would be able to grow and scale with the business the way that I have. And I think a large part of that is that I've done a really good job surrounding myself with really incredibly talented people. I hired an executive coach who's helped grow me over the years. And then I also think, I never thought that I could scale to this level. And, I think one of the things it's perhaps stayed true, but it's also changed in how I interact with my team. And I see that as a big part of my role, especially, with the way that the world has changed so much, especially over the last 3 years, right? We've all gone remote. You've had these massive, social justice uprisings, particularly around Black Lives Matter, but, all of the other LGBTQ plus IA and, all of the, awareness, the Me Too movement, and really wanting to make sure that, especially as a privileged white male, that, I educated myself as to what it was like to be a part of these, underrepresented groups and see how I, as a leader, should and could show up for these groups, not only internally to our employees, but also how does the brand show up to the external world.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. You said something in the beginning of that answer about like confidence, right? And like the root word of confidence is confide, which means to trust. And so, like, how did you trust yourself as a leader? How did you trust yourself to even go down to like the one purchase, like one donated, like business model? Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, there's this analogy that I've adopted when I speak to other founders, especially earlier stage founders. And building a business is, I relate it to like climbing Mount Everest, right? When you decide to, maybe if you decide to climb Mount Everest, you don't just like book a ticket to Nepal and show up and like strap some sneakers on and start hiking up a mountain, right? You put a lot of like thought and planning into, okay, what is the gear that I need? What do I need to train, to get my body acclimated? And then when you do show up on day one, you don't try to climb all the way to the top on day one, right? You break it down into the steps and it's done by day. And I think that the way that I started to build trust and confidence in myself was break all of the, the pieces of kind of building a big business down into small bite-sized pieces, right? And treat kind of every milestone or every step or every day as just, okay, what do I need to accomplish today, right? Mm-hmm. Not delusions of grandeur to be this big company that could be global and have multiple, categories with celebrities and all this other stuff, which I think people get too wrapped up in the hype or the dream of what it looks like to plant the flag at the top of the mountain versus just showing up and saying like, all right, I'm going to trust my body today and I'm going to just, get to that next step. And then once I get to that step, I'm going to evaluate the next step and the next step. And I think that's really what's ultimately helped me evolve as a leader is kind of breaking it down into these, smaller bite-sized pieces. As far as the one for one, the buy one, give one aspect of our business, this was like the hypothesis from day one, which was like, here's this underserved need in our community. For obvious reasons, people don't donate used socks because, or for hygiene reasons, or typically people get holes in them and they throw them out. And then it requires basically our giving partners to go out and buy these products. So or people have to go out and buy new product and donate it, which people don't typically think about. So our model like naturally works to help solve this problem. And we did a lot of research and talking with our giving partners before we even launched to validate the need and to validate, how do they like to receive the product? How much do they need? What are the needs of the clients that they're serving and the products that they're looking for? And kind of doing all of this research ahead of time just validated for us, okay, there is a real mission here that we can anchor the business in. And it felt really authentic and genuine from day one because, again, we really did the work ahead of time.
How many products have you guys donated to date?
I think the last figure was over 60 million.
Wow. You mentioned the giving partners. How do you guys tell us a little bit more about like how do you work with them to design the product? I know you mentioned getting quite a bit of feedback from them, but talk to us a little bit more about the design process and the role that they play in that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the explanation of giving partners on a whole is, I think a lot of people, and I know some other like give back companies, right? They kind of farm out their giving, right? They work with one organization and they say, okay, we send either all of our products or all of our profits to that organization, and then they kind of work with the community that they serve to help get the products to those that need them most. For us, it was interesting. We kind of decided early on that we wanted to own that relationship on a local level with all of our giving partners because our customers come from all over the country. And so we wanted to understand what homelessness looked like, all over the country. And so today we have over 3,500 giving partners with over 4,000 in the queue waiting to join our giving program. And these are 3,500 relationships that our internal giving team, which is a small but mighty team of 4, that manages those relationships directly. And so it's through our partnership with our giving partners that we get to get real-time feedback about the real needs of the people who are experiencing homelessness. And so early on, one of the biggest impacts that had for us is the way that we approached our donation product. And I think a lot of people don't realize that, we don't donate the same product we sell. And the cynics would sometimes assume, oh, they just donate some cheap product. It's actually, we used to donate the same product that we sell. But early on, we had a lot of bright colors and, just my own experience of walking around the streets of New York and handing out socks, we used to get a lot of requests for just dark colors, right? Something like solid black. And I was like, oh, why is that? And they said, well, it shows less visible wear. It doesn't show dirt, right? It's a dignity aspect. And so that got us thinking, okay, we went back out to our giving partners and we said, what else don't we know about the needs of the homeless community that we could help solve in this product that we're donating versus the product that we're selling to the consumer? And that led us to discovering that obviously they can't wash their product, their clothes as frequently as you and I can. So, they have a tendency to kind of develop, fungus or, foot hygiene issues. So we treat all of our socks and t-shirts and underwear with an antimicrobial treatment to prevent the growth of fungus and help minimize odor. We used the darker colors to minimize visible wear, and then we reinforced all of the seams to provide greater durability. Again, because many of our homeless customers only get 1 or 2 pairs of socks at a time, and same thing with underwear and t-shirts. So durability really, really matters to them. So putting kind of all of this thoughtfulness into the way that we develop this product, specifically for the homeless community, was, I think, somewhat of a unique approach that we've had towards, directly working with the customers that we serve in the homeless community. And internally, we talk about them as customers. We have our paying customers and our non-paying customers. And that forces the team to think about them as end users, right? And put the same level of thoughtfulness and design and branding and marketing into that product that we do the product that we sell to the consumer.
Wow. Jose in the comments said that part where you talk about like attention to like dignity, right? And who you're serving and why you're doing the work that you guys are doing. Quick question, kind of going back to your business model, the one purchase, one donated business model. Is that a model that you recommend to startups that are looking to be more like mission driven right now?
Um, I recommend it if you can validate the need, right? I think there are a number of brands, that have tried to implement this model, right? Because it feels buzzy and it's easy to understand. But they don't actually, you know, work directly with either the users who are going to end up with this product or the giving partners or whoever their network is, to kind of validate that need. They just said, oh, BOMBAS donates socks and Warby donates eyewear and Tom's donates shoes. Well, we're going to have a water bottle company that donates water bottles. It's like, I don't know, you got to figure out, like, do they actually need that, right? Or can your impact be better served, through some other mechanism? The reason that I think I like the buy one, give one model, again, if there's a need for it, is that it's really, really easy to understand for the consumer, right? It's really easy to quantify, right? We know that we've donated 60 million plus items to those that need it most, which is, again, really easy for the consumer to understand and then have them go, oh, I understand the impact that my purchase is having, on this community directly. I think whether you do buy one, give one, or donate a percentage of your profits, or find some other mechanism, quantifying your impact, and being able to turn around and say, this is the direct impact that your purchase is able to have on this cause or this community, is vitally important. It's what people call closing the loop, right, in marketing, right? It's if you kind of bring a customer in on the journey, you got to bring them to the end of the journey, to help them really feel, empowered and emboldened in joining kind of your mission.
Yeah. Where do you feel this model is going in the future, right? Like Ali made a great point. Tom's recent announcement that they're kind of moving from this. I'd love any insight that you're willing to share. Kind of where do you think the future of this model is going, especially for those that are looking to um, really be able to have the impact that you guys have had over the past few years?
Yeah. I mean, I think probably the biggest issue facing everyone, and it's probably, you see the momentum behind it, is obviously climate change. I think brands have moved on from kind of the buy one, give one to focusing on sustainability more broadly. We're lucky enough that we're now at a size and scale where we're able to make investments in sustainability, and we're able to make investments and commitments around diversity, equity, and inclusion, and belonging. But again, I go back to kind of what I just said before, which is like, don't adopt whatever model you think is the most buzzworthy in the moment, or you think is the future of X. For us, the problem that we're solving, is probably not going to change the world holistically, in the way. But what it does is it changes the lives for, those that are impacted by this. And even, we didn't even realize kind of the ripple effect of the impact that we would have, because as I mentioned, a lot of our shelter partners were forced to go out and buy these products, whether buy new underwear, buy new socks, buy new t-shirts. And by us donating these products that are brand new to these shelter partners, they're able to divert those funds into other initiatives that are then helping these communities. So we've had giving partners share with us that they've been able to send, children in their community to college as a result of the money that they've saved not buying socks, tees, and underwear. We've heard that people have received our product and been so inspired by the fact that there's a brand out there that thinks about them the same way that it thinks about the community. So it makes them feel seen. It makes them feel like a human being again. And that gives them the motivation to, all right, I'm going to go look for that job, or I'm going to try to, get that apartment. And so I think regardless of what you do, I think authenticity and being really, really genuine and going deep into the mission yourself, right? Don't say, oh, I want to create a business because I want to be a millionaire. I'm going to tack on this mission component because I feel like consumers really like that. Like, you have to get involved. You have to go deep, and you have to embed yourself in the community or the cause that you're going to impact. Because when you show up to talk to customers or hire employees, if you're not speaking to it from a really authentic and genuine place, they're not going to buy in, or maybe they buy in at the surface, but they're not going to continue along, to be a customer or an employee for very long.
Right. Authenticity, right? In all aspects of that, of how you serve, how you show up, how the team shows up. And so you've also done work around supporting the BIPOC and LGBTQ plus communities, as well as COVID-19 response efforts. Can you share those initiatives and how they fit into the model and the vision of the company?
Yeah, well, just this year, we won an Anthem Award for best marketing campaign, and that was for our Pride initiative. We launched our Pride campaign back in 2017, largely in part because we have a very active and vocal LGBTQ plus IA employee base at our company. So same way that I came across this quote for homelessness and socks, and that's what inspired me. This community shared with us that up to 40% of homeless youth identify as LGBTQ plus IA, and the majority of homeless trans are Black or brown or people of color. So when you start to realize that, okay, we obviously want to stand up and support the communities of the groups that represent who we are internally as an organization, you start to realize, the overlap that it has with the mission that we have. Because I think, early on, as an ambitious, mission-driven company, we're like, all right, well, let's create some pink socks to donate money to breast cancer awareness. And then, let's, stand up for this cause and this cause and this cause. And all of a sudden it started to actually really dilute, our core mission, which was to help the homeless community. And so for us, every initiative that we layer on top, and use the pandemic as an example, right? Those with the least suffered the most, right? And it was a disproportionate, percentage of suffering, for those in the global pandemic. You and I were like, oh, we're suffering because we're wiping down our cereal boxes, and we're unable to kind of meet up with our friends for dinner. Imagine someone who doesn't even have a home, right, and doesn't have access to hygiene. They disproportionately, suffer, and nobody wanted to go near them, and they became even more repelled in our society. And so our action response to work with partners to help get bed sheets and hygiene products and PPE to the shelter partners that were still going out and serving this community, despite the fear of the global pandemic happening. So for everything that we do, when we got involved in Black Lives Matter, right? Over 40% of the homeless population identifies as Black, right? So there's a disproportionate number of this group being affected in homelessness. So for us, our ability to always tie it back to our core mission, I think again has just reinforced how we authentically show up as a brand.
Absolutely. And I have one final question to round this out, but just in the vein of this question that I just asked you, when the team at Anthem was like, will you do this fireside chat? I was like, I have a really interesting BOMBAS story. So like your team, in support of Black founders, put out this pay it forward spreadsheet a few years ago, maybe about 2 years ago, randomly ended up in my inbox. And I fund Black startup founders, support Black startup founders. And that list helped a bunch of our founders connect with like developers that help build out their technology for free. Another one of the founders that I forward the list to met their investor on that list. And when you talk about authenticity and like the ripple effects of what you're doing outside of like the core product, right? It's that, right? It was literally, here's the person that you should know, and here's their Calendly link. Like, let's take out all the middle people that would stand in the way of you getting someone that can drastically change the trajectory of like your startup and your business. And so I had to say yes because I needed to tell you that story, and to thank you on behalf of like all those founders with that list that probably was very simple, but its ripple effects have been like immense for so many of those founders. And so with that, at Black Ambition,
I have to, on that note, because recognition is so important in this. That initiative and that idea originally originated with one of our Black female LGBTQ plus IA employees, who then shared it with our CMO, Kate Hewitt, who identifies as LGBTQ plus IA as well. And Kate used her position of power and awareness to then get me and all the other executives on our team to start using our networks to push this out. But Jessica McGlory, who is that employee of ours, really deserves all the credit for starting that initiative. We just kind of ran with it.
Yeah, just know that there's a bunch of ripple effects out there in the startup community that benefited from that. So, with Black Ambition, we always ask our founders this question because we like them to think much more bigger and expansive about what they're building and why. And so I'm going to ask you this question. Who are you uninterrupted, right? Like if nothing stood in the way of you being able to achieve your success or your impact, if every light was green and never yellow or red light, like what would the world look like with what you're doing and what you would ultimately want to do if nothing stood in the way? Really long question.
Yeah,
but
no.
Is the question.
I think our mission, kind of what you call it, BHAG, or your kind of like end goal, would be able to meet the entire global demand for new socks, tees, and underwear in the homeless community. And maybe, who knows, once if we ever get beyond those three products, maybe it's hygiene kits or coats or shoes or whatever. But BOMBAS exists to serve those in need, and I think we won't stop until that need is met.
Nice. David, it's been an absolute pleasure to spend this time with you. The chat is on fire as well. And so you have a lot of fans. And thank you so much for the work that you guys do and how you and your team show up every single day. Thank you, guys.
You as well. Thank you.